Hey, this is Aaron Carnes. We started this podcast in 2021 to promote my book, In Defense of Ska. Since then, the podcast has grown into its own thing. I've been working on an expanded second edition. I interviewed new people, edited every chapter, and there's a new final chapter, 30,000 new words. The expanded second edition of In Defense of Ska will be released on October 29th, 2024. Can you do something for me? Pre-order it right now at clashbooks.com under the Books tab. The more copies it sells in advance, the more it'll get people to support ska music. Thanks.
Major phone carriers make you sign contracts with rigid data plans to trap you into a kind of forced phonogamy. Sounds pretty insecure if you ask me. At Consumer Cellular, we believe in a more consensual and healthy form of phonogamy, free of contracts and more flexible to your data needs. This way, you stick around not because we force you to with contracts and fees, but because you love our phone plans. Like ardently love our phone plans. Phonogamously. Consumer Cellular. When freedom calls, we're here to answer. Call us at 1-888-FREEDOM.
Consequence Podcast Network. Welcome to In Defense of Ska. We aim to push back on the mainstream's negative perception of the music. Ska deserves the respect genres like punk, hip-hop, and hardcore find among their listeners. And in the case of this episode, soundtrack music. Our host is renowned music journalist and author of the book In Defense of Ska, Aaron Carnes.
Today we discuss the TV show Craig of the Creek, a children's cartoon that's composed by Jeff Rosenstock and filled with ska punk. The show premiered on Cartoon Network in March 2018. It's about a boy named Craig Williams. He and his friends have adventures in the nearby creek, and their imaginations run wild. While the show is intended for kids, there is a deepness in how the characters' stories are treated that has drawn in adult audiences as well. The show was canceled midway through production of its 5th season. On January 14th, they released a prequel movie on Max. It's called Craig Before the Creek. To discuss the show and the role that the ska punk soundtrack plays, we bring on Jeff Rosenstock and show co-creator Ben Levin. And now joining me is my co-host, veteran ska musician Adam Davis of Omnigon and Link 80.
I don't really watch cartoons myself. Like, you know how a lot of adults watch cartoons?
Yeah.
I can't really get into them. But my kids watch cartoons. Craig of the Creek was one they had on that I liked. And then I kept hearing this familiar voice in it. Mm-hmm. And I looked it up, and it was Jeff.
Oh, yeah.
I didn't realize it was Jeff Rosenstock.
Yeah, the music's really good on that show.
The music really sticks out. Like, there's episodes where they're playing music in the episode, and, you know, I didn't realize it was Jeff at first, or you know, punk stuff, like actual punks. And then, you know, come to find out, it is.
Yeah, so, like, a lot of cartoons for the past few decades have used ska, but they kind of use it in this very superficial way where it's like, oh, okay, we're going to show silliness and like the craziness of youth, so throw in some ska. But what I love about Craig of the Creek is that it uses ska in a way where it shows the depth of emotion and the dynamics of the music in a much deeper way. You know, I think that's awesome.
You know, Craig of the Creek shows that ska is a nuanced genre. It can stay true to the music, and it can build dynamic emotional arcs.
So you sent me the soundtrack and for the Craig Before the Creek, and it has the songs and all the music for the film. And I listened to it all before watching the movie.
Oh, crazy.
It was weird to watch it because it all fits so nicely, but you hear all these songs like out of context first. It's kind of an odd experience a little bit, but yeah, cool. I'm just throwing that out there.
That's a good one. Yeah, I mean, I think generally movie soundtracks, you watch the movie first? I don't know. Mm-hmm. Are you saying the soundtrack's bad, Aaron?
It's a great soundtrack. I love it.
It's jarring.
But there's like parts in the soundtrack where it's like very rhythmic with the action in the movie. Like, did you guys coordinate that very specifically, or?
Yeah, I mean, it's not like coordinated specifically, but the music is written to the picture. So I think from talking to our mutual friend Jeff Trammell, who is I read an interview with Mark Mothersbaugh actually about scoring one of those Thor movies, and how Marvel was initially like, yeah, just give us 5 pieces of music that are X amount long and we'll figure it out. And I think some stuff is done that way, but his reaction to it was, no, I'm just going to watch the movie and write the music alongside it and score to it. And that's how we do it on Craig also. Like, I watch it, me and Ben talk to each other. I give it the old college try. Me and Ben talk to each other again. Hopefully the new version it achieves all, and then with this, then usually then it's done for the show. But then with this, it's like, okay, and now let's have a giant group of people record it.
So why is ska punk the perfect music for racing through the creek on a bicycle?
Oh, that's a good question. I mean, I think, God, I think that like ska punk, especially what Jeff does, the energy is can be really wild, and really, I think captures just that like kid wildness and just rough around the edges feeling.
Yeah.
But I also feel like there's some deeper connections to Craig as well, or at least like how I viewed ska as a kid and how Craig views being a kid.
I want to come back to the soundtrack, but I think first our audience is probably very well familiar with Jeff's ska history, but we should get into Ben's ska history first before we dive into this interview. So we're going to go through your ska resume.
Yeah, sure.
Ben's got a solid ska resume.
I have some pretty thorough notes here.
Oh, Aaron's done his research.
Oh shit! Okay, watch out, Ben. You've been researched.
You've been researched. So you grew up in Olney, Maryland. Am I pronouncing it correctly?
Yes.
Okay, so you got into the ska scene in Maryland and Washington D.C. in the late 90s, early 2000s.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Do you remember your sort of like first show, or what kind of drew you into the scene?
Yeah, I mean, I do remember. I remember like coming into contact with ska like a few times before I really dove into it, but I didn't really know how to find it or like kind of access it. I feel like there's a thing when I have a younger sister. I'm the oldest. Sometimes when you have an elder sibling, they can help you get into music, but I didn't know like how you find music. So I had like heard like Less Than Jake this is a very strange thing. I used to do aggressive inline skating, which is another 90s thing.
Yeah.
And there was a magazine called Inline Skater, and they had a compilation they sent out, and Less Than Jake was on that. And I just like listened to the CD, and I wrote like little smiley faces or frowny faces, whether I liked the tracks. And I wrote like a smiley face next to Less Than Jake. But then I was just like, I've never heard of this band outside of this CD. I don't know where you find this. I'm sure you'd have to go to some small record store in New York. I don't know. And so I didn't really look into it. And then when, then of course when like ska kind of hit on MTV and on the radio, I kind of discovered it was accessible. There was places to buy it. And my first show was the Ska Against Racism tour at the 930 Club. And that it blew me away. I remember that was like my first show, like kind of my first show. Before that, I had seen 311 in kind of I don't know, not an amphitheater, but something like that. And I was like way in the back, and I was a little like distant from it. And then when I went to the 930 Club for the Ska Against Racism tour, I was up in with all these people, and when Kamuri started playing, it like blew my eardrums out. And I was like, my body had never experienced a sound that loud before. And I just got like pushed back with the crowd. And I remember seeing someone skanking, and I was like, I think I can do that. And I started doing that. And yeah, that was how I feel like I got into it.
Nice. All right, so let's go through your resume. You were in a ska band. Konami
Yes.
Code.
The Konami
Konami
Code.
Code.
Konami Code. Okay. What did you do in the band?
I played bass in the Konami Code. Yeah, I feel like it was the natural evolution of hanging out around the kind of Maryland, DC, Virginia ska scene. I had a friend who I think before I had a friend who played guitar, and I was like, "Ooh, if I play bass, maybe I can play in a band with him." And so I got a bass, but then it was too late. He already found someone to play bass, so I just had a bass. And then I started like taking lessons and practicing like Suicide Machines riffs and stuff. And yeah, me and my friends, the other ska punk kids at my school, started a band called the Konami Code, based off the Konami Code.
What was your best show?
Oh, my best show? I think that it might have been our last show that was the best, where we played in we didn't play that much. We, kind of started at the end of high school and then played a little bit after we went off to college. We played our last show in this library, this small library, and they were very nice to let us use the space, but the librarian person running it asked us not to curse. And we were like, well, our singer was like, this is our last show. He kind of didn't care about that, so we kept, dropping curse words.
You're teenagers too at this point.
We were in college then. Yeah. So we kind of like we did a cover of "Cheat to Win," and yeah, there's some F-bombs in that. They got mad at us.
You could say them here. It's okay. You can say them on the show.
I'm coming from children's television, so I'm trying to be.
Oh yeah, do we have to keep this one clean?
No.
Oh shucks.
That was fun. A lot of people showed up, and even though it was like chaotic, we really put our all into that. I think the highlight though of being in the band was getting mentioned in Nintendo Power.
Whoa.
Wow.
There's just like a small little blurb that just said like it was about the Konami Code, which is the code you put in Nintendo games to get like infinite lives and Contra. And they said it's also a ska punk band from Aldie, Maryland. And I was like, we did it.
That's awesome. How did they find out?
I don't know. I mean, we had a website, I guess. I don't know. Maybe they Googled it or not Googled, Alta Vista'd it, something. Weirdly, I accidentally let the domain name lapse. I mean, I guess we weren't doing anything with it after we broke up, and another ska punk band took it. Like, there's another Konami Code, I think, from Florida that like is also ska, and I think took that website or something like that.
Wow.
Well, keep it going.
Keep it going.
Maybe another ska punk band has it now that isn't either of your two bands.
There must be something inherently I don't know, that draws ska kids to that. I don't know, to the Konami Code, Nintendo references.
Sure.
There were a lot of Konami Code references in like emo at that time, I feel like too. Like the Ataris had a Konami Code reference. There was some band we played with that had lyrics that was up, up, down, down, left, right, be a star. I remember that and being like, oh.
I think we almost play with Arrogant Sons of Bitches. I think I have a story where we emailed you once, like my guitar player or something.
Maybe I wouldn't have gotten that email. I wasn't the booking person in ASB. Were we like trying to play a show in Maryland and then it didn't work out kind of thing?
I don't know. I wasn't the booking person either. I just think I remember like looking back and you're like, shit, should have done that.
Yeah, that would have been fun. That would have been cool. I mean, we had you emailed me when Bomb had played at C-Lab 187 in Brooklyn in the backyard, and we had met and we had talked about a video possibly for Bike Test, and then it fizzled out. And I like came across that email when I was like trying to find emails from you about the show, and I was like, oh shit, I didn't write back to this. I still can't decide if that's good or bad that I didn't write back to it. Like maybe if maybe if we had known each other, you would have been like, "Fuck this guy."
No way. So are we gonna do it, or should we still look into that?
Yeah, let's go.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, you got time on your hands.
Yeah.
There's never been a better time to put out a song from the 2007 record, Get Warmer. Put out a new video. Sure.
I think the fans want it. Yeah.
Yeah, it's what the fans want.
All right. So the scene at the time, a lot of the scene was at the corner kick.
Yes. Yeah.
Can you explain what the corner kick was?
Yeah. The corner. Wow. Yeah. The corner kick was like this indoor soccer place. And it was in Gaithersburg or Germantown, Maryland. Yeah, that was like the center of my local scene. Before I got on there, like a few years before, they had bands who actually like played on the field of it. And then a little after, I don't know if they got in trouble for certain things or it got too wild or just the shows got a little smaller, but they moved it up to the bar upstairs. There was kind of like a pub situation upstairs that they would set up a little stage in. And that was where, like, yeah, we would go like for at least like once a month, go see shows there. It was it was a really seeing shows at the corner kick was like a really important part of, I just feel like, my youth and like kind of learning about DIY culture. Because I got into ska and I mean, it was fun and just such a like so much energy at the shows, and then you sort of delve further in past some of the like, well, I guess the Bosstones were political, but like through ska and like getting into punk through that way, I sort of got into the like DIY politics of the scene. And there was this really great couple, Dan Hess and Michelle Chin, who would set up shows and also ran this website, dcska.com. They would set up shows in like Rude and DC Productions. They would set them up at the corner kick, and they were like the hub of the scene. Like they would, if you wanted to get a shirt made for your band, they had a silk screening set up. They could help put you on a show. And there was like one guy that we all knew that we recorded in his mom's basement. But like seeing them like put on these shows and like being able to play a show and seeing just like other people my age like doing this like was really, I think, formative in just like taking kind of control in your own art and trying to go out and make something and not like waiting for permission. I feel like I really credit a lot of that to that scene that I was exposed to there.
So we're talking like early 2000s primarily, right? Like what were the main bands of that scene?
Yeah, I mean, I came in around, I maybe came in around 97, 98, and then was, into the 2000s. The biggest hometown hero was the Pie Tasters, and that was always like a, tremendous show. I feel like the band, there was a band, Eastern Standard Time, that was also like really solid. And the band that would always play at those corner kick shows that Dan Hess was lead singer of was the Ratchet Boys, and formerly known as the Skankersaurs. And they would they were like really like like kind of like a crucial part of that scene. Like if a bunch of like local like really small high school bands like mine were playing, then they would headline and everyone would love their songs and they would throw donuts out into the crowd, and it was a lot of fun.
Were they more in the vein of ska punk?
They were, I would say they were kind of like in that like leaning more towards like the two-tone inspired stuff. It was a little more, it didn't have as much of the punk in there. But like it had that, they weren't like trying to be like aesthetically like stuck in that era or anything like that. They were just they were just a super fun band. But they would mostly play like kind of like some instrumental ska numbers, and then later on they mixed in, I feel like, some kind of mod elements to their sound.
Was that a common element for the scene? This sort of DC scene, especially with your big names being Pie Tasters and Eastern Standard Time?
Well, I think that the scene that I was involved in, there was, there were a lot of ska punk bands. I feel like it came a little later that were around with when Konami Code was playing, like this band Plan 9, and the Max Levine Ensemble weren't a ska band, but they had I think they had a ska song or two that was in. They were a punk band though.
Poop Farm is Poop Farm ska song?
I don't know. You could definitely dance to it. I actually I feel like there was a big mod element in DC though before I was there. And I shot a bunch of interviews for a DC ska documentary that I never finished, and I talked to a lot of the mods from the like late 80s, early 90s scene. And there was like a small skinhead mod scene, like a little bit of scooter culture, I feel like going on in the early 90s. And then I think that like there were like more kind of traditional sounding bands that came a little after that. I mean, there was the Pie Tasters, who I feel like, have that soul mod ska situation going on. The Checkered Cabs. I think this band, The Favorites, the Skunks. I want to say the Downbeat Rulers, but maybe I'm mixing up bands. There's a really good DC ska comp that all these bands are on. I feel like they did maybe lean more in that, like, not traditional, but I guess like, yeah, following more in the two-tone, the kind of that, I don't know, aesthetic, or not aesthetic, but just that style.
That sound, yeah.
So, like bands like the Pie Tasters in Eastern Standard Time, would they play your town, or even like any other kind of like, touring acts? Like, would they come through, or was it always just like you got to go to Baltimore, or you got to go to DC? Like would DC bands come and play the Corner Kick ever? Like the bigger bands and stuff, like the Pie Tasters ever play there, that kind of thing?
Yeah, they would. That was like a secret show. Like it was like, hey, we're gonna have a Halloween show, secret guest, and we're like, oh shit, we learn who it was, and it was the Pie Tasters, and it was like insane. Yeah. The scene, the bigger band that I think did the ska punk thing, earlier on in that scene was the Decepticons.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
And Jorge went on to be in the Pie Tasters. I believe you talked to him, but they were like, they're from Virginia, and they were we love them. But I think early on it was like this kind of, coming from that kind of mod vibe. I remember Steve Jackson from the Pie Tasters, when I interviewed him, he told me some joke about like why is the mod wearing a parka because it's raining in England or something like that. Like they all, like, I think early on,
great joke.
They were all really trying to like just like, finding records and just only having the cover of an album being like, let's dress like this, and there was no internet. And so I think that there was those traditions earlier in the scene, I think.
So you did end up making a documentary about the Slackers though, right?
Yes. Yeah. I was shooting them I was in film school in college, and during my summer breaks, I was shooting a lot of these DC ska interviews and going around talking to people. And then for like a project at NYU, I interviewed Vic from the Slackers. I don't remember how, but he let me talk to him in his practice space, and I did like a little interview with him, and everything he said was so compelling. He's like a really just a really amazing guy to talk to. And I asked them about if I could do a whole documentary on the band. I didn't really know what I was doing. I think they were just like, there wasn't like an official thing. They were like, sure. They let me come to shows and tape them and interview everybody. And so I ended up switching gears to that. I think, I think I still love DC ska, and I want to do something with that information that I have. I feel guilty about it. But this was something that was a little more, I think, like something I could grasp my brain a little easier and kind of happening in the moment. So I ended up doing this documentary on the Slackers.
Is that documentary available to watch anywhere?
Yeah, it's on YouTube.
Damn.
Yeah, go watch it after this.
Yeah.
The idea of saying like I'm gonna do a documentary about a specific band versus an entire scene, like that's like night and day in terms of accessibility or your ability to finish the project.
Yeah, I mean, I'm, you know, I think you of all people would know about that kind of, taking on that thing. Like, I think I got into like too much of the weeds. Like, I would talk to someone who was like a friend of the band, and like, yeah, I was in like, you should talk to this person, and then like I would just kind of keep trailing down like friend groups and stuff, and to a point where I'm just like, I think I didn't know when to stop, and it was just becoming overwhelming. But there was a lot of cool stuff I learned in like demo tapes that I like recorded of, these like, late 80s, early 90s mod bands and, smaller ska bands that kind of, peaked before the big boom, I guess. It was cool. Sorry, DC.
Okay, so you made a short film called She's a Bombshell about three friends on their way home from a ska show, and one of them won't shut up, not realizing that he's annoying the other two friends.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, that was my senior like thesis film in at NYU. And it was just like, based off the many car rides to and from shows that I had.
Mhm.
And just I don't know, like going to shows was such a beautiful, almost religious experience for me. Of just like being in the pit with so many people and just like the energy and like just screaming lyrics. It was just I don't know, I'd never felt anything like that before. And also, there would be, you're a teenager, you're looking for romance, you see someone, maybe you talk to them, maybe you don't. They're really cool looking, they have a mohawk, you don't know what to do, they're very intimidating. There's a lot of things that happen, and it's all beautiful. And that's, yeah, so I made that. Actually, the footage, it's I also made it because I was animating it all by myself, and so I tried to pick something that I could actually accomplish. So I said, well, 3 characters sitting in a car, there's not a lot to animate, I think I can finish this. So I made a very talky short with characters sitting. But the background footage, so there's the cars drawn, but then there's like lights like going by in behind the car outside of it, and that's actually just video footage of the actual drive from the 930 Club in DC to my house back in Olney. So that is like DC footage in there.
There's a comic that you drew that I think a lot of people listening have probably seen. It's called 10 Uses for 10 Different Ska Bands.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, and I've seen that before. I didn't know that was you before I did research for this interview.
Yeah. Oh, man. Yeah, I mean, before Craig of the Creek, I had more time on my hands than I would draw comics. I don't know. I've always tried to, yeah, that was just a love letter to all the different bands and how they make me feel,
Ben, I remember this. I didn't know you drew this.
You didn't know that was him?
No, I saw it like when it happened.
Yeah, because the funny part is that it has bombed the music industry. And I remember thinking like, that is really interesting that this person included bomb the music industry.
You fucker.
Now it all makes sense.
This is so good. I've never seen it before.
The Boss Tones one is good, Ben.
Yeah, so good.
It's just a picture of Alicia Silverstone. It says being in Clueless.
But then there's a little arrow pointing to the like blurry spot where the Boss Tones are. Love it.
Okay, and then another big piece of your ska resume, you drew the illustration for the Ska Dream cover.
Yes.
And the No Dream cover.
Oh, and No Dream also, you didn't just add the ska characters to that's what I assumed.
No, I did the No Dream one as well. Yeah,
okay.
That was all thanks to Jeff letting me try to do that. Thank you.
Thanks for doing it. Try to do it.
Come
on, Ben. You did it. It's there.
Yeah. That was like, we talked about that right before the pandemic. I feel like that was like the last time I saw you in person for a little bit, maybe, right?
Yeah, because I was like just moved to LA. I was like, this is sick. I'm gonna make some art with Ben. That's gonna be really fun. Wow, all the things I'll do.
All right, so Ben, give us a little insight. This is what really happened, right? He said, "Hey, can you make this album cover for this record called No Dream, and then make it so eventually I can add ska characters to it? So because I'm going to do a ska version of this album, like in a year later."
Oh yeah, it's all super premeditated. Make sure to leave space and everything like that. Yeah.
I think I did ask you, Ben, if it was okay to do Ska Dream. I think I was like, as a ska fan, is this okay, or does it seem like we're making fun? You were like, it's good. I don't know if you remember that.
Glad I said the right thing.
In Defense of Ska will return in a moment.
Hey, welcome to Kyle Meredith with Consequence. This is where we check out some of the cool new things happening in the Consequence Podcast Network. I'm Kyle Meredith. Today, I get to talk with Adam Unz to discuss the latest season of The Opus.
Hi.
Well, first off, Adam, congratulations on the new season.
Thanks, Kyle.
So, which album is in the spotlight this season?
As always, it's presented by the Consequence Podcast Network and Sony Legacy Recordings. It's a music history series, and it's coming back to celebrate the 30th anniversary of Alice in Chains' sophomore album, Dirt.
What a classic album. I completely remember hearing it, those first few listens back when it came out, 92. I probably picked it up in 93 and 94. It was just dark and heavy and so melodically beautiful at the same time.
I know. Dirt was truly a genre-bending collection that defined an era. So we're going to help our listeners to explore the context of what was happening back then and also hear how it still inspires artists and fans today.
Sounds great. And you can listen to it at consequence.net or, of course, wherever you get podcasts. It's great talking with you, Adam. Thanks for stopping by.
Thanks, Kyle.
So, okay, Jeff, you mentioned the Bomb Music Industry show. This was like 2007, I think, at a house show.
Yeah, that I believe that's when it. I think that's when it was.
Okay,
that makes sense. Like things happening wise.
Yeah.
So Jeff, had said in an interview that that's how you ended up getting the show, Craig of the Creek.
Yeah, essentially, I guess.
I mean, could you elaborate on that?
Well, Ben saw the band, and then you kept listening to it, and then when it was time to have music for a show, you emailed me. Is there any more to that, Ben?
I mean, I think that Jeff, my favorite musician, and I had so many Bomb shirts. I could wear one every day of the week. And I was just like, yeah, I just loved your music. And I also knew, like, from you doing Bomb, that you could, like, self-produce, like, amazing stuff. And so, yeah, I asked you.
I emailed Ben a very mushy thing about this a couple of days ago, but it's like Ben is one of, I don't know too many people who have, and Ben certainly beyond the way anybody has, like, kind of believed in my ability to make all kinds of music and to be able to actually do it, and didn't really look at it as like, here's this like goofy drunk punk, like, drunkenly mashing on a keyboard and screeching out off-key melodies, which is generally like how things were described. It was nice, Ben. Yeah, bringing me on the show, like, not only like trusting me with like punk ska stuff, but like all the wild places that the shows go. And I always thought it was really nice that came from this backyard show that was very chaotic and stuff, versus the way I thought it would happen or could happen for anybody to like get a job like that, which is that like you go to school to get a very specific degree, and then you like network and intern and eventually like Like, I didn't even know how it would happen. It feels like a 1 in a million shot that would have involved a lot of like agents and managers and people working on your behalf. And it's always really sweet to me that it didn't really happen that way for me. Like the seed of it, I guess, was that house show, right? Like you hadn't known Bomb before that, right? It's neat. You're a real one, Ben. You're the best.
What made that house show so chaotic?
I remember Bob climbed up a ladder and it was Brooklyn, and in the backyard there was like it was like a fire escape ladder to nowhere. Maybe it was to replace the power lines. I just remember a picture of like Bob playing the Shinobu set and having climbed all the way up to the top of this ladder while playing bass, and it was really weird. I remember, I think it was the first show they had at C Lab. So the neighbors were like, the neighbors who would eventually start throwing eggs and stuff because they're like, oh wait, you're doing this all the time. We're like, oh shit, this is a party. And I feel like they were like throwing beers over the fence or something. It was a real party. And like, it was, I don't know, for Bomb, I would say it was chaotic. One, because we had Laura playing with us and Sean playing with us, if I'm remembering correctly. And the two of them weren't like on the tour. They were just, it was a collective. So people popped in and out. So we were just like, I don't know, we're all having a really fun, good time. I had a troubling time getting shows in Brooklyn because it was such a cool place. And nobody replied to my emails. So I remember like when we were playing like basically in our friend's backyard in Brooklyn, everybody's just like, yeah, let's just go hard. I don't know. Bomb shows were kind of chaotic all the time though.
Sure.
Is this Sean McCabe, the
yes,
mandolin player on Craig Before the Creek?
Yes, Sean McCabe, the mandolin player on Craig Before the Creek, and Laura Stevenson, the vocalist on Craig Before the Creek.
Okay, yeah.
They're all. I keep them all with me. keep asking them to do stuff.
Ben, do you remember that show very well?
Yeah, I remember. I mean, I feel like at several of those like shows, you guys always had so much equipment. It was like a lot more than who else was playing, and so it would always take forever to set up, and then like something would go wrong after one song, and then you have to set it up. There's maybe a hockey stick microphone stand or something happening. I feel like there was something like that.
That might be the era where we were like hanging socks over all of our microphones so we didn't get shocked. But they were also like the socks we were wearing that day, so it was pretty gnarly. And we'd all have like one sock on while we played.
I think I went to that show alone, and I was in the front of the house. I remember like standing in front of the house, just like trying to make conversation with one of the dudes who lived there or something. I was just like, oh, so you like live here? And he was like, are you a cop? And I was like, no, not a cop. I just trying to talk to somebody. I'm going to go to the backyard. They were a blast though. I don't know. It was an awesome show.
Sorry, you got called a cop.
I was just trying to make conversation.
Can you walk us through the process of Craig of the Creek becoming a show, and when you brought Jeff in, and how that worked with the network and everything else?
Yeah. So before Craig of the Creek, I was working at Cartoon Network writing for a show called Steven Universe. And I got the chance, me and my writing partner, Matt Burnett, who's the co-creator of Craig of the Creek, along with me, we had the chance to pitch a show to Cartoon Network. We'd actually pitched once before we pitched Craig of the Creek. We'd pitched something and it didn't work out. And I kind of had I learned a lot from being on Steven Universe, and like sort of like was reevaluating like what I wanted to do and what I wanted to make. And when I was coming up with Craig, we were just thinking about like what we love to do. And so I'm going to give you a longer story, and then I'll try and go through it quickly. But Matt and I used to do this web series about like these three nerds who LARP. And when we came out to LA, we came out to try and pitch the show to some different places, and nobody got it. Nobody wanted it. And but it was like a fun thing we did about these like three nerds like playing around. And I sort of had this idea of like, well, maybe like that kind of concept would make a lot more sense if they were just kids, like playing in the woods. And both Matt and I had grown up on the East Coast. Matt is from New Jersey. And we both lived like in these suburbs with little like patches of woods behind our houses. So, yeah, it was just like something like this place from my childhood that I used to go to, and it was just like free to be wild and kind of make up your own adventures. We kind of combined those things we love to do, and we pitched that idea to Cartoon Network, and I didn't really expect it to get picked up. We pitched it, and they liked our initial pitch, and we did like a storyboard for a pilot, where it was like a 7-minute short, basically.
Was that the one that eventually became the pilot?
Yeah. So we did a storyboard pitch for that, and they liked that too. And then they were like, "Can you like finish like?" They gave us some notes, and they're like, "Can you finish it?" And we're like, "They're not gonna." I don't know. We just didn't think they were gonna pick it up because we'd been rejected before. We're like, "Oh, whatever." And they're like, "Can you please like hurry with this?" Yeah, we got greenlit to make a short, and that's when Jeff came in to do the music. I forget if we had like temp music in the pilot or the animatic. Did you ever see it with the temp music?
I'm trying to remember if there was. I remember there being temp music in episode 1, but I don't know if there was temp music in the animatic. I don't remember.
I mean, I for sure like used some of your songs in like the pilot, like when we were like editing the pilot. Used some ska songs.
Yeah, there was an Antarctigo song at the end. There was an ME330 song in the middle.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And I think Super Rad was in there.
Is that the one that's on YouTube?
The pilot should be on you. I think it's on YouTube.
Yeah.
That was the sort of the animatic. It's before it's animated, when we edit together like the storyboards to the voice actors' recordings. That's called an animatic. And it's just like, black and white, and kind of used those songs to pace it out. And then but it was, my dream to work with Jeff on this. And so I asked Jeff, I forget how, but I asked you.
You emailed me.
Yeah.
And it was my dream to work on a cartoon. And I was like, what? I've never called anybody back that quickly in my entire life. I was just like, oh shit, this is what? I didn't believe it was real. Like, I don't know. And you were sorry, is it okay that I just jumped?
Yeah, jump in, go in.
Please.
But you mentioned that you worked on Steven Universe. I was like, no fucking way. And I like Googled it. I was like, what the fuck? It just kind of like, it blew my mind. So yeah, I called you back very quickly and was like, yeah, I want to do this. And we met. I don't know how much later we met up at the Hi-Hat. Do you remember this?
Yeah, I remember meeting up at the Hi-Hat. Yeah.
Yeah, and we spoke. You talked to me about. We mostly spoke about how the Life Won't Wait demos, which I had not heard yet, are better than the record Life Won't Wait, which is my favorite Rancid record. That's mostly what we talked about.
They're so good.
They are good. The version of Who Would Have Thought on there, right? Is that the one that's just like basically all ska? I mean, it's just more ska, and it sounds like they're playing together. Yeah.
The Cash Culture and Violence.
Oh, that's bass
drop remix. That one, that's like one of my favorite songs. Like that's like I really like what they did with that. Yeah, we talked about that.
I'm surprised they haven't put those out. Like, they're good. What are they doing? Everybody like put out a deluxe or something, right?
Let's go.
No, Life Won't Wait.
Damn.
It's weird that like, yeah, it's funny to hear you, like we've talked about it, but that you felt that way about doing the music, because I was just like, I'm taking the biggest swing here. I don't know if this is gonna any interest at all. So I was like just amazed. I was so pumped.
So Ben, did you have to clear this with Cartoon Network, or they're just like, whatever you want's fine?
We did technically have to clear it with them. I remember there was one meeting where we were discussing a lot of things, and Jeff like was one of them. I remember one of the like studio execs was just like, I don't know about this, and I think are you sure? And then I think I don't know. I think someone else was like, it's fine. I think they just were looking for something to be a little unsure about, and I was, very insistent, and I think they didn't care enough to argue with me.
Thanks you for being insistent. I always did kind of wonder, like, if they like looked into anything that I'm doing, if they were like, this guy's like hanging fucking 666 flags and like telling people to like, burn down the capitalist state or whatever. We shouldn't have this person on the show. I've always wondered how that stuff slipped by their radar.
I mean, I think like Cartoon Network in general at that time, like things were fairly loose. I think that a lot of things did slip under the radar because the shows don't have as much scrutiny as like at Disney or Nickelodeon. I think partially because it's a lower budget place, so they're like, well, whatever. They're making their thing, but Cartoon Network I feel like just has had a weird vibe like that. Like they kind of let people do their things somewhat. But like also I feel like we've had conversations like that in the past at Cartoon Network, and we had one on Steven Universe about, we had Nicki Minaj do a voice, and there was a whole thing about that. But I think that once we had that kind of precedent, it's like, I mean, come on, you can't connect, like if an actor does an R-rated movie, does that mean they can't be on a kid show? Like there's like, how much degrees can you really care about this,
Yeah.
So I feel like we made that argument before, because there's been times where I think they have been like, I don't know. But it wasn't really a problem from what I remember.
So Jeff, when you had announced on Instagram that you were doing the show, you said that you had done like 2 hours of music, and that you also you shared a photo of this cramped, messy room filled with instruments and computers, and so this is where I recorded it.
Yeah.
So I mean, is that just where you were recording music in general at the time?
Yeah, it was just where I did my demos. It was like we had a 3-bedroom apartment in Greenpoint, and one of the rooms we were subletting out to our friend. And then one of the other rooms was like the size of like you could probably fit a queen mattress in there, no bed frame. That's it. It was like, that kind of New York City bedroom, but it was right off of our bedroom. So yeah, I just kind of like, I was like, great, that'll be perfect little tiny studio to record some stuff in. And yeah, like I looked like shit in there, and I demoed all the records before I moved in there. So it was already, that was already where I was working. The dumb thing that I did, which I don't know what the hell I was thinking, but I did the first 20 episodes of Craig. This job I did not know how to do. I did it on my laptop because I wanted it to be kind of like, I wanted to come at it from like somebody else could make this kind of thing. Like it was very low, like low price of entry kind of thing, like kind of in the spirit of like early bomb stuff, where it's like, if you have a laptop, you can make some records. So it was in that room with a underpowered computer that kept like having crashes and stuff like that, and then eventually I moved to a computer that worked after 20. But I got my 20 in, and I feel like it was smart too, because then it was like taking like, I don't know, weights off to start working on like a computer that worked a little better, and slowly I started working with like, more like expensive sample libraries that sounded more convincingly orchestral as like the show demanded it and stuff. But yeah, to answer your question, yeah, it was all in that room. I have a bigger studio where I live now at my house, but like the setup isn't really that much different. Like I keep everything within arm's distance, and I'm just in a spinny chair, like spinning around, like playing this keyboard or grabbing this thing or grabbing this thing, and just trying to go as fast as possible and just like fill it all in so it sounds cool and good and moving and stuff and fun, you know?
Is there any specific instrument that is like a signature sound to the Craig of the Creek show?
Well, I think like punk and ska in general being in it, like, so to answer your question better, like, yeah, like Craig, if you hear like kind of this like chorusy, clean guitar strum, that's generally Craig's voice, or like kind of like my my worst point of reference possible, but like Saved by the Bell style or like California Dreams style, like clean chorus guitar, like sentimental music. Like that stuff's very Craigie. Um I like any melodica stuff is usually reserved for JP. Kelsey's stuff is Kelsey has all sorts of stuff. Like she's very metal in real life, but then kind of like these like more orchestral instruments, or medieval instruments for when she kind of goes in a fantasy world. And then once we had more characters, like Xavier, like his tense themes are like all done with like 808. And Maya, who was Xavier's just like right hand person and eventually defects or whatever. Like her instrument, I was inspired by this, I had the CD of Rust in Peace by Megadeth in my car when I moved out here. And there's a song Five Magics where there's like a lot of like clean chorusy bass doing these like metal arpeggios, and I thought that would sound really cool for her. There's all sorts of stuff like that. Like if you go through like any number of characters, usually like with this show, like every episode, or not every episode, but like so frequently, like new characters would get introduced, and I'd be like, okay, well, how do I represent them in a way that doesn't seem like it sounds like somebody else? And then like a lot of that stuff gets fleshed out like later when they appear again. Like Ren has all these like synths and like sciency sounding things, but then like the common thread that I tried to do to pull this all together was just basically keeping it ska punk, or like bringing that in wherever I could. I always felt like that was what kind of brought the show back to like home base. Even like in the movie, like towards the end where the adventure like really gets kind of heightened and the music gets kind of like John Williams-y inspired, like 80s, 90s, like fantasy action adventure inspired, like score. Like I was trying to sneak in like English beat style guitars or something, or just like something in there that like kept it ska. One, because like I never had heard music being made in that way before. Like cinematic music with like ska influences. Like that sounds it sounds like if an idea that if you told anybody other than Ben that you want to do that, that person would fire you. And but to me, it's always like it's the heartbeat of the show, and punk stuff too. So it was always just kind of, and also like just in my like childhood and adolescent years, just like thinking about listening to music on headphones just all the time, because that was just, I just loved music and I'd always be listening to music, and I wasn't great socially. So I would just listen to lots of music, and I always tried to keep like that kind of stuff threaded throughout the show. Because that was my childhood, and it was all like energetic stuff that made me psyched. So like having that kind of stuff run throughout, and also always just trying to see how fast I can make the music, like see how much like really fast music I could sneak in before it becomes like, you can't do that. And it's like, okay. Which to Ben's credit, to Matt's credit, like you let me fly with some very fast stuff once I figured out how to do the job, and I appreciate that.
Yeah, I mean, even more than the ska stuff, like these little moments of like basically hardcore.
Yeah. Oh well,
Yeah.
the movie's got like power violence in it. Like,
Like almost the funniest to me is that how it works, how you could have this style of music and it works in a kid's program.
thanks, man. Yeah, once when we were finally like recording it with people, because like when I'm at home, I'm just kind of like just trying to make it match and trying to make it good. When we're recording with actual people, I was like, oh man, this is also a power violence record, kind of. That's fun.
We'll be right back after this.
Hey, welcome to Kyle Meredith with Consequence. This is where we check out some of the cool new things happening in the Consequence Podcast Network. I'm Kyle Meredith. Today, I get to talk with Adam Unz to discuss the latest season of The Opus.
Hi.
Well, first off, Adam, congratulations on the new season.
Thanks, Kyle.
So, which album is in the spotlight this season?
As always, it's presented by the Consequence Podcast Network and Sony Legacy Recordings. It's a music history series, and it's coming back to celebrate the 30th anniversary of Alice in Chains' sophomore album, Dirt.
What a classic album. I completely remember hearing it, those first few listens back when it came out, 92. I probably picked it up in 93 and 94. It was just dark and heavy and so melodically beautiful at the same time.
I know. Dirt was truly a genre-bending collection that defined an era. So we're going to help our listeners to explore the context of what was happening back then and also hear how it still inspires artists and fans today.
Sounds great. And you can listen to it at consequence.net or, of course, wherever you get podcasts. It's great talking with you, Adam. Thanks for stopping by.
Thanks, Kyle.
Ska on kids shows isn't a new thing, but I think, a lot of people that have done that have sort of been like, well, ska's silly, ska's fun. That's why it's there. But the music that you make is, it's different and it's used differently on the show. There's an emotional element to it. It's very thoughtful. So watching this to me was very unusual to see the way ska was used in a kid's show so differently.
Cool. Thank you. I'm aware of that. I hope that this is what Ben was hoping for too when you asked me, buddy. But like the thought of doing music for a cartoon and making ska music for a cartoon in particular, my immediate thinking was like, I do not want this to be like Paw Patrol, basically. Like, I don't want it to sound like a Sunny Delight commercial, like maybe sometimes, but like, I don't want it to just feel like it's this stock, just like bubbly music all the time. Because that isn't what being a kid feels like. And the ska that I listened to growing up, like you listen, like there were songs on like Hello Rockview or Question the Answers that like if it just hit me at like the right time, and it would like make my heart break, and it would really just like it would just touch this other, like it meant a lot to me. I mean, it still does, but like it really like hit me when I was a kid in a big way. And it's the same for Ben. Accurate?
Yeah. Oh yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. And so I wanted to approach it with that in mind, and to try not make anything lame. And then like once I started getting episodes, it was easy to do that, because it's the same thing with the show, like, not like it's a red herring or anything, but like it has real emotional depth to it, that's balanced out by like really funny jokes and really like wild animation and all sorts of things. And it was like, okay, cool, like this show, like it wouldn't work with that kind of like Micro Machines commercial ska music. like that wouldn't work on the show. Like it needed something with heart and with depth. And I believe ska punk has that, which I think a lot of people generally, you know, only see like the surface elements of it or whatever.
Sure.
So yeah, that's what I was trying to do. And then as it moved on, just trying to be like, oh, like we're literally making where this episode looks like a Studio Ghibli movie, and I am trying to make music that sounds like that. But how do I sneak ska chords in there to make it sound like Craig of the Creek?
So on your live album, Thanks Sorry, you played the Craig of the Creek theme song.
Yeah.
Was that a normal part of your live set, or did you just throw that on there so that it was on a record of yours?
Oh no, we were just playing it. We were just playing it live in the set at that point on tour.
Oh, you were? Okay.
It felt like a good place to put it. We just played like this long, like 4.5 minute song. It felt good to play the Craig of the Creek song after that, kind of like a reset.
What sort of reaction does it get live?
We haven't played it in a while. When we played it then, the show was just starting. So it was like a handful of people would be like, yeah, cool. But we don't really know how to play it anymore because since the pandemic happened, like, you know, the songs that didn't make it to the next tour, like kind of escaped everybody's brains. And people have asked us to play it. And I'm like, what do you think, guys? And like, we tried to get through it once in Salt Lake City. And we played it, but then I realized Mike Huguenot, I think, was playing a completely different song from the musical at that point.
Oh, amazing.
And it was like, okay, cool. I think he was playing The Creek is Everywhere. Because we played that in our Ska Dream set. Like, we sneak in Creek stuff. Like, we play Creek is Everywhere in our Ska Dream set. And we've been playing the full version of the end credits song, Illegal Fireworks and Hiding Bottles in the Sand for the last few years live. And that's been fun. And whenever I say, like, whenever I sing the I'll see you tomorrow at the Creek line, which I've started sneaking in there, you know, there's a contingent of fans that go, woo! And I'm like, yeah, there's my Creek people. Hell yeah.
Yeah. So what do you want to talk a little bit about In the Key of Creek, the musical episode that you wrote? This was near the end of the second season.
Yeah.
What was that process like to write like a musical episode?
Ben, how did you convince? Because I feel like since the show started, it's like, bro, you gotta let me write a musical episode. And you're like, okay. How did you convince them to let that happen? Because I know animation wise, it's crazy, right?
Yeah, I mean, with the show, I'll say in general about the show, everyone on the crew is very passionate about it, and everyone for each season will end up doing something where like we've never done something as hard as this, but everyone's like pumped about it, and then the next season we do something even bigger, and we're like, that was easy. Why are we doing this thing now? Yeah, we were trying to end the season with a bang. I don't remember. We didn't need anyone's permission. I think it was like,
yeah, because I was just like, I'll just come out there.
Yeah, it was like more like, yeah. I mean, well, it took a lot of finagling, but yeah, I don't remember how. We must have talked about it first. You came out here and like wrote really quickly.
Yeah. Well, we talked about it, and you were like, you wanted it to be a pirate episode, right? Am I remembering this right?
Oh, yes.
And I was like, I don't want to. And I was thinking about look, no disrespect to this band, but I was thinking about the Mad Caddies record, Rock the Plank, and I was like, I do not. I think I was like, please, Ben, don't make me do that. Which is funny because now the movie's a pirate movie.
Yeah, whoa, I forgot about that.
But yeah, I came out. It was really nice. I got an Airbnb in North Hollywood, just like some person's apartment, and I set up my laptop, and I brought like a little MIDI controller, and Chris Farron lent me like a bass and just basically all the things I would need to like make a full thing. And I was like, set up, and then I would go over to Cartoon Network. We would hang, like, I remember the first we met in that me, you, and Matt and Deshaun and Jeff. I forget if anybody else was in there. Zach was in there. Anybody else? Anyway, we met in that pitch in the pitch room. And like they had already written out like an outline, a premise for the episode, which is basically, the beats of when things happen and stuff like that. And we kind of talked through like, okay, well, when do the songs happen and what do the songs do? And Deshaun pitched a joke, which we couldn't do, which was that in order to get Craig to the creek from his bedroom, that he jumps out the window and rides a rainbow down. You guys were like, we can't have Craig jumping out a window. And then Matt like hummed like a little. I think Matt hummed basically like what was close enough, or maybe exactly the "well, will the rain and that," and and like gears just immediately started turning. I had like my little keyboard, and I was just like, "Oh yeah, I think it could go like this." And I remember you guys were like, "Whoa," and I was like, "I don't know," and I was like, "Let me go back to the Airbnb and record this really quick." And then I went back and did like made what's basically on there in like 4 or 5 hours or whatever, maybe longer than that. And then I went and I sent it to Ben. I went and saw the movie Us, or maybe Get Out. I saw one of those, and then I got in my car and drove back, and then I had an email back from Ben that was like, it's good. And I was like, oh, thank God. And then like once like that was, once it was like, okay, you're on the right track, it was really easy. And I would just go in and we would talk about it, and I would kind of like pitch ideas for the songs. Everybody was really supportive. Everybody was giving really, really great like ideas for how to finish them up. And it was just really, really fun. It happened really quickly, which is good because I didn't have that much time to do it. But also because I don't know. I think good songs happen. I think when songs happen quick, a lot of the time, in my experience, like they end up being good. So I was stoked. And then they had to animate it.
Yeah, so for the end of each season, I feel like we try and go out with something big, and I think this was like definitely like a bucket list thing for the show. If we didn't do anything else, is to get to do a musical thing with you. And
and for me, it was really fun. It was the best. Like I got the Sonic Youth CD Dirty for my rental car for like $5 from Amoeba, and I would just like, it's cold in New York, and I would leave this nice LA apartment and drive to this fucking storied building to work with all these amazing people. I don't know. I'm always pitching myself working with the Cred crew because, like Ben said, everybody's really passionate, and everybody is very like, everybody really always wants to push and wants to go hard, and also everybody just makes really incredible work, is really supportive. So when I'm in there, I'm just like, oh wow, I don't know, I always feel lucky to be had there. But anyway, so we wrote the songs, and then Ash and Roan storyboarded it, and then I came, and then everybody acted it. But then I came out and recorded. We did like the vocal takes. Hey. We did them in like, what do we have? How long are those sessions? 2 hours?
The sessions are 4. We have 4 hours to record an episode regularly. And that's not singing.
So. Yeah. And also, and like bless everybody. Everyone was prepared, and that was sick because everybody did a really good job on it. But we were shooting a behind the scenes thing that never aired. And I was just trying to not get in any of the actors' heads about that being part of it, which in hindsight, I'm like, I don't know if I needed to do that, but that was my instinct at the time. So I was like, okay, well, they'll come in and they'll shoot, and those will be your practice takes, and then we'll do real ones. And it's a miracle we got through it all. But I was just watching the clock, and it was like making a record at Jack's, where you're like, okay, we have a day to record a full record and mix a full record. Let's go. Let's not get bogged down with thinking it's not going to happen. Let's just push. Let's go. And we did need one extra session, but it was crazy. That was intense. And now when we record songs for the show, Ben, and it takes like it takes like an hour to do it. I feel like an hour
Yeah.
and a half to like get the full takes. I'm just like, how the hell did that musical episode happen?
I know. It was a very stressful day. That was a crazy day.
Before we go and start talking about the movie and the soundtrack for the movie, I think, Adam, did you get some questions from your kids?
I do. So I have two sons, James and Thomas. They're 10 and 12. They introduced me to Craig of the Creek before I even realized Jeff was involved. And so the show would just be on in the background. And every now and again, like the music would make my ears perk up, or just the jokes in the show. And I was just like, what is the show? And then I realized Jeff was involved. And then I realized, there's a deeper connection here. So my son, James, is a big fan of the show, and I actually recorded some questions from him.
Nice.
So here's the first one. Let's play it.
What is the idea of Craig of the Creek? What gave you the idea for Craig of the Creek?
All right. What gave you the idea for Craig of the Creek? I think we already kind of covered that, but talk a little bit about hanging out down in the creek yourself.
Well, there's this creek I used to play by.
Yeah, I mean, when I moved to Maryland, I was living in this house, and behind it was it's just little patch of woods, and me and my friend Clark. The show's not Clark of the Creek, but the sea of that is inspired. We would go down into the creek and just have adventures, and it felt like when we were in there, just like we were in an endless forest. We would build forts and run into other kids, and see kids jumping, dirt ramps and climb into the sewers. So it was all just from the childhood of playing in the woods.
Yeah, I had a creek that ran through our neighborhood in Gilroy, Uvis Creek, and it was all overgrown with bamboo.
Ooh.
And so kids would like tear down the bamboo and then build forts out of the bamboo. And so you would find these like ramshackle forts that kids had put together out in the boonies.
That is cool. There was one patch of bamboo where we were, and it was like with Craig, it was a part of our map of where the creek was. That's sick. That's awesome.
Yeah. Okay, here's another question.
Yeah. What gave you the idea for the Heart of the Forest to become an actual part of the storyline instead of it being just a show in it?
Oh,
Heart of the Forest.
Oh, like Haru, the Heart of the Forest. This is a little bit of a complex one. In Craig of the Creek, there's Craig plays on one side of the creek, and then partway through watching the show, he discovers another side of the creek beyond this overpass, and there the kids play in a more regimented way. It's sort of this monarchy where like there's a king and the subjects all like dress like flowers and have like different plant names like to their like what rank they are. So we had kind of created that other side of the creek, and then we started creating the backstory for why it was like that, and that's where we had this idea that the first king of the other side of the creek was this big fan of this anime that had all these kind of magical plant characters in it, and that's where it came from. So it sort of evolved from just like creating this king and this other side, and then finding out what could be the backstory of this and going from there.
Hell yeah. All right, one more.
Would the storyline be different if it didn't get canceled?
Oh, would the storyline be different? I think that we finished the heart. There's a Heart of the Forest arc that we finished up before we were canceled. And after that, we were doing the movie, and then returning to do more episodes of the show. And I think after doing like so many kind of like arcs and like big continuous stories, we wanted to return to doing like just fun like one-off episodes. So I think there's more stuff we wanted to do that we didn't get to do, unfortunately, because they cut our last season in half because of corporate mergers. but
Boo.
there's more stuff we would have done. There's no like big storyline that you'll see only part of. We just had to just pull some storylines out, but yeah, there's a lot of fun stuff in the final season.
In Defense of Ska will return in a moment.
Hey, welcome to Kyle Meredith with Consequence. This is where we check out some of the cool new things happening in the Consequence Podcast Network. I'm Kyle Meredith. Today, I get to talk with Adam Unz to discuss the latest season of The Opus.
Hi.
Well, first off, Adam, congratulations on the new season.
Thanks, Kyle.
So, which album is in the spotlight this season?
As always, it's presented by the Consequence Podcast Network and Sony Legacy Recordings. It's a music history series, and it's coming back to celebrate the 30th anniversary of Alice in Chains' sophomore album, Dirt.
What a classic album. I completely remember hearing it, those first few listens back when it came out. 92, I probably picked it up in 93 and 94. It was just dark and heavy and so melodically beautiful at the same time.
I know. Dirt was truly a genre-bending collection that defined an era. So we're going to help our listeners to explore the context of what was happening back then and also hear how it still inspires artists and fans today.
Sounds great. And you can listen to it at consequence.net or, of course, wherever you get podcasts. It's great talking with you, Adam. Thanks for stopping by.
Thanks, Kyle.
All right, let's talk about the movie and specifically the soundtracking of the movie. So, Jeff, you recorded this at Atomic Gardens, which is where you record your records.
Yeah.
I assume you've never recorded anything Craig related at Atomic Gardens before?
No, I haven't.
This was a bigger endeavor than you'd ever really done for the show before?
Yeah, just in a lot of ways. Musically, it ended up being pretty wild, but the biggest endeavor was like figuring out how to find an orchestra, how to like budget for it, how to record them, all of that stuff. I had never done any of that in my life or for the show.
Yeah. So you have a core band called the Wishmakers.
Yeah.
Let's go through the name. So you're basically working, aside from the orchestra, I assume, or some of the orchestra, these are your friends, people you've known and worked with already. You're kind of pulling from your friends and stuff.
Yeah. So it's the Wishmakers is basically the Ska Dream Band, which is my band, John, Kevin, Dan, Mike, and then we got Jer and Matt on horns. And then there is a cinematic percussion element to the movie that my buddy Namdi, who I just know has really likes cartoon music, I believe, and also is just like a freak of musical talent, can really do anything. And Zach, who plays in Pup, who is also just interested in movie scores and makes his own kind of like movie score music sometimes, and is also a great drummer and plays in my band sometimes when we're in Canada. And I was just like, okay, I know all these people will be great and it'll be fun to work with them, and that they would like to do it, that it wouldn't really take too much convincing to do it.
You had a Franz Nicolay as well?
Oh, right. Yeah. How did I forget Franz?
What did he do?
He plays the accordion. I mean, it's a pirate movie. You got to have a lot of accordion. So it's just like,
Sure.
All right, got to ask the guy, I've seen Franz play accordion since I was in college, and he was in like World Inferno doing stuff. And it was just like, yeah, cool. It was cool to have him in there. It would have been fun. It would have been fun to like get him out to do it. But at a certain point, the budget got way out of my control, and it was like, okay, buddy, you're going to record this from home.
So you had an orchestra. You also worked with the San Jose Taiko, which was pretty cool.
Yes. Yeah.
Did you have a connection to San Jose Taiko?
Yeah, Christine, who plays in San Jose Taiko, worked on our video, our like live set that we did during the pandemic at the Atomic Garden, the Live from the Garden thing. It was she was working with Gene Ang, and they shot it all. And off the cuff, kind of like when we were wrapping up, she mentioned that she was in San Jose Taiko. And she's like, so if you ever need any taiko drums for anything, and I was like, oh shit, I work on a cartoon, maybe I will. It just got the seed planted, and then once I read the script for the movie, I was like, oh yeah, we gotta have taiko drums all over this, because also I was trying to figure out a way to once again not make it sound like Rock the Plank. I was trying to not make it sound like I don't know. I don't mean to talk shit about anything, but like I just didn't want it to sound like super typical pirate music, but I wanted it to sound like they were. But I didn't want to like be like a sore thumb, be like, no, I'm not going to make pirate music, so I was trying to figure out a way to do that, and taiko drums to me just felt like it would match just like these like big booming like explosions from the cannons, and just like, and that first scene with them coming through and pushing through the trees, and like the beginning, them running, like it just seems like there's so much space for like, going fast paced with the rims, and then just feeling like really big with the drums. And also I was just like, and also I know if I want to do this, I won't have to use fake taiko drums. Like I could get a real taiko ensemble. That's sick. And then, I emailed, I eventually talked to Franco, who's the leader of San Jose Taiko, about it. And he was pumped, and they did such a great job. It was cool. That was some cool stuff. And we both got to play a taiko drum, me and Ben, and we played da, 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 da on a taiko drum.
Is there any, can you point to any song or moment in the movie where the taiko drums are very prominent?
Yeah. I mean, when the ship first pushes, when we first see the pirate ship, big taiko drums in that, but also like the opening of the movie, like it opens with this giant drum, and then it leads off the big musical number of the movie, Join Us, and it's just kind of spread throughout. It's under a lot of the pirate things, and but I would say those three moments are the big taiko moments, especially the pirate, like the first time we see the ship.
Aaron, have you ever seen San Jose Taiko drums perform before?
I think I have. Yeah, it's really cool.
I definitely saw them. They were the opening band for Skank and Pickle.
What?
Yeah.
Was it the last time Mike played in the band, or one of the last times?
It was.
How did that happen?
I don't know, but it was wild watching San Jose Taiko drums with a bunch of punks.
Whoa.
What did the crowd, what happened?
This is like a festival thing, right? A San Jose festival?
No, it was a show.
Was a show, really?
At least it felt like a show to me. I don't know.
Was it at a venue?
Yeah, it was at the event center at the college. It's been demolished since, but
okay.
Yeah, it's a great show.
That's a good bill. San Jose Taiko and Skank and Pickle. I go to that show.
Yeah,
for sure.
So there was photos of you guys recording the orchestra at the studio, and John, your bass player, is conducting them.
No.
So he wasn't the conductor.
No. This dude Noah Luna, who worked with the Bandits of the Acoustic Revolution Orchestra, conducted everybody. And found all the players and stuff too. I was lucky to have that connection through Dan P. And I spoke to him, and he was really chill and really excited about doing it. And he found a lot of really, really like great people to play on it. Not just great players, but they were all really nice, great people. We had a really fun time during that session. Actually just got back from recording a string quartet for one of the last episodes. A string quintet, I should say. And it's just like it was very humbling and an honor to like have people who are so talented playing these things that I'm writing. It's kind of surreal and crazy. But yeah, that was Noah Luna.
How many people did you have in the studio or if you can recall.
I can't recall how many we had in the studio. I think in total, the orchestra's 40 pieces. And I don't like, I know we did 6 violin ones, 5 violin twos. Like I could kind of count a little bit, but I'm not sure. It was definitely at max capacity though. We had to, what John did have to do was figure out how to get headphone feeds to everybody. Where like, you know, a recording studio, you could give like 6 or 7 people headphones and it's cool. But trying to get like 30 people headphones is hard. And John was running lines out to them the whole time. But once it got going, it was sick. It was really exciting. It was very like I don't know if you felt the same way watching it, Ben, but it was like high wire act kind of thing. We're just like, oh God, are they gonna get this one? And like you hear it sounds beautiful. It's like it's crazy. Like the few times I was able to like step out of my job that day, which was to listen critically, make sure all the notation was done correctly, make sure all the parts are being played correctly, make sure everybody's in tune, you know, like do the stuff you do when you're making a record. Like when I could step out of it and just like watch what the orchestra was doing at like every take was just like, it was magical. It was crazy. It was very intense and I was very giddy the whole time and running out of time the whole time.
Now, Jer was in the orchestra and in the Wishmakers.
Yeah.
Now, it's my understanding that Jerry used a good trombone for the orchestra and a bad trombone for the Wishmakers.
My trombone.
Adam's trombone specifically.
Yeah. I wonder if that was just a matter of getting up to high notes, but I do remember, I feel like I remember Jerry being like, I wish I had a better trombone for this. Cause the ska horn stuff, that stuff wasn't easy either. Like none of it was easy. All the music I realized as other people had to play it, and it wasn't just me in my studio playing it till I got it right. And other people, including me, like having to do like live takes, was like, oh, this is hard. Anyway, but yeah, Jer was in the orchestra. Like Noah had an empty spot in trombones kind of towards the end of planning it, and he was like, I could find a trombone player. I was like, well, let me just see if Jer will do it. That'd be fun. I bet they'd be stoked, and they were. It was cool.
So you had some guest vocalists and some let's see, Mike Park.
Yeah, well, that's a Bruce Lee band song.
Bruce Lee, yeah,
which is cool.
Did Mike sing, or was it just that you guys used that song?
No, Mike wrote that song for the movie. So we like Ben had put Temp Super Rad in there, but we were talking about it and trying to find a balance between like something that feels kind of actiony and feels like, but doesn't feel dire, you know? So not something as like poppy and bubbly as Super Rad necessarily, but not something as like dark sounding as like I Want to Riot.
Yeah.
You know, if you can if you get what I'm saying. So I talked to Mike about that, and he did what he does for Bruce Lee Band, which is he just sent me a bunch of voice memos of like a verse and a chorus, and then slowly said like, and then maybe we could do this after that. I don't know. And I kind of like messed around with all of them with the scene, and then I was like, I don't know, and they're all bangers. Like Mike is pretty incredible. Just like if he sends you 5 songs, like all 5 of them will probably be good. So with that in mind, I was like, hey, can you send me another song, but like with this kind of way doing this? And he's like, sure. And we just kind of like went through it really quick. And then one of them made sense, and I kind of fleshed it out and made it match the picture. And that was the animatic. And then when the animation came in, all that stuff changed. And then then I tried to figure out other ways to make it work. And me and Mike kind of worked on that together. And then, yeah. And since everybody in the Bruce Lee Band was already in the studio, we just like did a different configuration, and Dan got on guitar and I got on bass, and we tracked the Bruce Lee Band song like that.
I see. So you also had, let's see, you had Britt from Catbite sang a song on there.
Yeah. Britt had sang a song on the show before in Bernard of the Creek Part 2. called I Ain't Doing Anything. And she just knocked it out of the park. She's so good. She sings really hard. She really like belts when you need it to be belted. There's no like, sometimes I will email people who are singing on the show. I'll be like, and sing hard and really go for it. And with Britt, I don't have to do that. And she always sounds amazing. And also, I'd known that I wanted the song to be in Spanish, just because it was like breaking into this like anime sounding moment in the movie and in the music, and I wanted it to, and I didn't want to just like do the trope, and I thought it would be cool, and I thought it'd be rad, and I've done like Japanese language anime music kind of stuff on the show before, and I just wanted to be different, and I knew that Brittany is a great singer, so I asked her, and she was like, hell yeah. But my Spanish isn't great, but my mom is a Spanish teacher. So a lot of the lyrics were translated by Brittany's mom, which is fun.
That's rad.
So you also had Pierce Jordan from Soul Glow.
Yeah.
Song.
Yeah, that was cool. Thanks for letting me do that, Ben. I met Pierce at Adjacent Festival. I forget if that song was there. I think that song might have already been written for the movie. Yeah, it was. But I had met him, and I love Soul Glow. Like, I think they're a great band. And we were talking before their set, and he was like, I didn't know you did the music for Craig of the Creek, but like, he just really likes the show. I think I believe he's from Maryland, and his dad was also a computer programmer or worked with computers, something like that, where there were a few connections, and it really hit him in a real way. And I was like, damn, dude, I'm sad the show's ending, because I really like, I would have loved to have you on the show doing something. And then it just made, I was like, oh shit, yeah, you could do this hardcore song that's in the movie. That'd be good. Would you be into it? And he was into it. It was cool. Yeah, that's how Pierce became part of it. Who else is there that's on there?
So Matt Embry,
yeah,
RX Bandits.
Yeah.
What does Matt do?
There's a guitar solo in on the soundtrack. It's called Rumble in the Wishmaker. And there is a guitar solo there that I had, and it was kind of like Matt Appleton playing all the baritone sax on the record, where like I had demoed it, and Franz with the accordion. But I was like, man, I'm not great at like finger tapping or dive bombing, no matter how much I try to be when I make music for this show. And I know Matt just shreds so hard. And I asked him, and he was into it. But then also he did the dub of the final of like the end scroll, like rap movie credits. He did it. He made a dub of it that's on the movie soundtrack. Ben, I don't know if you heard that, by the way. It's sick. But it's the thing that closes out the soundtrack. And he did that. And that was like that, and Brittany doing her vocals for like the verse of The Flood were things that were like happening while I was on this last tour, when I was like really just like rounding out the soundtrack and trying to make it something that could kind of stand on its own.
I was wondering about the dub song, because his name's on the dub song, and I was like, what did he do? I didn't know he actually made the dub song.
He made like the end of it. So like I made the beat for the beginning of it, and then yeah, and in the movie I like kind of dubbed out the ending, because we were sitting there during the final mix and was like, man, these end credits go on like 15 seconds longer than the song, or like some amount of time that it was like, that's too much. And I sat down at the computer and just kind of like extended it and dubbed it out a little bit. And then I sent, I believe, the original to Matt Embry, and he did his own spin on it, and it turned out really cool. I'm really stoked he did it. I feel like it's a sick way to end it. And I also like it that Lingua Franca, who raps on that, Mariah, who has rapped on the show a whole bunch, that they end the rap by just shouting out their own name. I think that's a funny way for the movie to end, and for the soundtrack to end, is just them be like, Lake Franca, yeah. It's just like cool.
So Laura Stevenson and Chris Farron, they just provided like some backing vocals, or did they do any leads?
Yeah, there's some like Beach Boysy harmonies in there. I mean, there again, Laura and Chris and Elise who sings in there, and Jake, everybody in there, but Steve from Superviolet and the Sidekicks, like have sung on the show before. Like I've tried to get all my friends on the show in some capacity. And so when it was time for like a 5-part Beach Boys harmony thing, I just hit all them up and asked them if they could sing a little thing and make a nice texture for this very poignant moment of the movie.
So Ben, were you involved at all during the recording of the soundtrack?
I just came up to watch. I came up for like a.
So you did go. You were at the studio watching.
Yeah, for a couple days. Yeah, it was incredible. I mean, like I was able to sit I was able to sit in the back seat, unlike like you're saying, Jeff, and like just marvel at what was happening. It was just so unlike anything we've ever done for the show, and I don't know, I didn't understand really how like orchestras, like how these musicians like don't practice, they just like read it and go for it. Like I feel like people don't understand that, and it's insane to watch.
It's insane to watch.
Wow.
Yeah, that was incredible to see them like, all right, let me turn the page, let's try it. And then you're like, oh my God.
So Jeff, you are used to putting in a long day of work, whether it's your own music or whatever it is you're doing.
Yeah.
This was beyond even your normal long days, right?
When it got to the mix, yeah. But the recording days, they weren't super long. They were just really, really, they were more intense than anything ever because, you know, me and Jack, we had not ever done this before. And so it took us a little bit of time to catch up to like Noah calling out or like, okay, we're going from bar 1079. Give me 2 bars. Ready. Let's go. And we're like, oh wait, that's in like a different session. It's split up between all these different sessions. And like, it was like, there was a lot of just like, we were going so fast. And then we, you know, I was a little bit optimistic with how quickly we were going to be able to record all of this music. And so we were just going. And we have a list of like hundreds of cues, I guess, that we're just like trying to nail all of them down. So the intensity was really high, but also like we were watching an incredible thing happen. So it was just like it was a lot of feelings happening. And then the final mix of the movie, which I went up to like get on with Jack, was done in like 3 days. And those were like, that was like, Jack starts his day around 8. I start my day around 10. We would get dinner around 6, and then I would work until like 1 or 2 in the morning. And then we just did that for 3 days, and that was intense. I didn't love that. But also like Craig is like that sometimes, man. Like sometimes there's an episode that's very intense, and like I have a very like tight schedule because I'm going on tour at some point and I got to get all these done. So like there are definitely like days of Craig where like I will send Ben and Matt the email with the episode at like 2 in the morning and just be like, okay, I'm so sorry, but I need notes tomorrow because like I'm getting in the van on Tuesday kind of thing. So like length of days, no, but like the intensity and just like the pressure of like doing it good because I convinced all these kind people to let me make a movie score with an orchestra. And because I did it all myself and I didn't really have help with orchestration or arranging or anything like that. Like, I just wanted it to be as good as what I was seeing on the screen, and I just didn't want to let anybody down. So there was pressure there as the clock was melting away. You're just like, God, I got to get this right. I got to get this right. You know, it's definitely the most intense recording situation I've ever been a part of.
Well, according to the liner notes, there was a composer assistant.
Oh, Christine
Mackey.
Yeah. What'd she do?
It's her wife, by the way. I'm just, if anyone doesn't know that. Yeah.
What about it? I mean, she's my wife, but also she tour manages our band, and she was handling a lot of the logistics for the Hell Mode rollout while I was working on this movie. And so at a certain point when things were falling through the cracks, mostly with scheduling, with budgeting, just making sure everybody's getting paid, making sure everybody has somewhere to stay, making sure everybody's flying out the right day, like organizing like Namdi's flight, Jared's flights, making sure that like percussion deliver like that, the like chimes and big drums and big cymbals that we were renting to do on top of the taiko stuff, making sure that got delivered, making sure it was paid for. Just like all of these things are like these ideas that I had in my head, just like actually making it happen, because that is a thing that happens with me a lot of the time, is like I get ahead of myself, and then once I'm in the weeds with work, like I can't do anything. So Christine really did a lot. Like it wouldn't have happened without that. Like a lot of that stuff would have fallen through the cracks, because I didn't have extra time to like do it. So yeah.
Shout out Christine.
Shout out Christine.
Woo.
So at some point during, I think the mix, maybe, I'm not sure, but didn't Dan Ozzie interview you for The Guardian while you were just deep within the mixing process?
He interviewed me while I was working on the second to last chunk of the movie, like getting it prepped, which is just like really trying to dial in. I spent so much time trying to get the fake strings to sound good so I could communicate what it was supposed to sound like to the people who were notating it and to the orchestra. And also, without getting too deep into a very boring story, I was just having the worst computer issues I've ever had in my life at the worst time I possibly could have had them. And I was losing like, generally 2 hours a day to my computer crashing, but sometimes 4 or 5 hours a day where it would just crash. I'd open it, I'd try and fix it, it'd crash, I'd open it, try and fix it, crash, I'd open it, try and fix it. And like eventually I would get there. It was like a hunt for corrupted files on my computer that somebody had messed up in trying to repair it. And it was a real nightmare. Because I also had to finish this movie and try and make it good. So Dan wanted to interview me for Hell Mode, and when I told him that's what was happening, he was like, "Oh, that'll be funny. I should come over and interview you then." And I was like,
"Perfect."
I was like, "All right, man." Like we're friends, and I love a good bit, and that seemed like a good bit.
So, okay, this movie was not originally intended to be the final, this movie got greenlit before the show got canceled, right?
Sure, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And so now we're kind of, talking about, I guess, even the legacy of the show at this point as this movie's coming out. The show is a kid's show, but there is a fair amount of adults who enjoy the show, right?
Yeah. Matt and Ben told me it's an all ages show, which I think that kind of hits the nail on the head. Like from a, forgive me if I'm speaking out of turn here, Ben, but like as like a person who is watching these episodes once they're done, like I understand that like Cartoon Network's target demographic for this show might be like 8 to 12 or around then, but I think like the stuff that everybody's making, they are making something for everybody. They're making something that people our age can like laugh at the jokes and be stoked on the animation and stuff like that.
Yeah, I was reading some articles, some people kind of talking about it, and the opinion was that some people who are adults really got something out of the show that was like almost like healing to their inner child, I guess, or kind of accessed their feelings as a kid. Maybe it was aspirational for what they would have liked to have experienced as a child, kind of addressing the emotions that they felt as kids themselves. So I'm curious about that and your intention, Ben.
I mean, the show, we all everyone involved in the writing of it, and in the show, like we try and channel all of our childhoods. And, once we had Matt and I had like spawned the idea for the show, but once we had the crew, we really drew upon them to like bring their stories to the show. And so a lot of people brought their own perspectives and like experiences into episodes that just like, we found that people connected to when they watched it. We kind of, the creek was like a place where Craig could run into any number of kids, and so we would kind of think about childhood experiences and stories we wished we could have seen, or that we would want to see on screen, and write those characters. And it was just a lot of kind of, I don't know, a lot of expression from everyone on the crew.
And everyone on the crew is really good too. Like you have amazing people working on this show too. So I feel like when those stories come through, they were just again, just like as someone watching it, it was just like it was so real, and it looked beautiful, and you could tell it's just like coming from a real place. And I think that's the kind of thing that like can resonate with anybody, no matter what age you are. The truth.
Yeah. And I think once you're kind of, when you're in this position, we're making shows that we think we would have liked, like episodes we think we would have liked, stories we would have liked as kids, but also we're making what we want to see be on television, and things that entertain us as the people creating the show. Keeping in mind, we want to don't want to lose our, like kids in anything. We want it to be all relatable to them, but it's just we kind of make it in this weird just bubble of like, what would we like to do? And we've been lucky enough to do that for 5 seasons.
Now, I guess was probably our last question here. What was it like making the movie with the knowledge that this was sort of it for the show?
It was, I was thankful that thankful the movie didn't go away, because when they started canceling stuff, like when Discovery merged with Warner Media, and all these cancellations and layoffs and stuff happened, there was like other original movies that were getting cut like mid production. So we were just like, I was so thankful that we didn't get cut. But it was great that we had this movie, that it wasn't just like we were stopping midstream, that we kind of had done this big arc of episodes called The Heart of the Forest, and then we had this big prequel story of how it all began that we could kind of go out with. Like, and it was, I think that's, everyone put, even, I feel like everyone, at least I did, like put a lot into it, because this was like our one of our last big statements. So it's kind of fortunate that we were able to do this movie, and that we can, like, this is like a big fireworks ending, for the show. There's more episodes that come after this. But this is definitely like a big statement that I'm thankful to have.
Yeah. It was very odd starting the movie after knowing it was canceled, but it to kind of the same thing Ben was saying. It was just like, all right, well, this is your last chance to like make a big thing. I was just so glad that they didn't. I was so glad the movie came out, because animation's so wild right now. You really don't know what's going to happen. Like that Roadrunner movie, like it was done, and then they were like, it's not happening. Then they're like, it's happening. So like, until it was like actually on something, I was just nervous. I was like, what's going to happen? What's going to happen? And I don't know. I'm just happy to have done it, and it really like, and to be able to do it in what I hope is a real movie score way, or at least my best interpretation of a real movie score way.
Do you think some of the decisions you made in scoring it were motivated by it being the final opportunity, or just the fact that it was a movie was going to always make you try to go as big as possible?
Honestly, just the fact that it was a movie, but I think that it was the final thing, in that like I don't know. I don't know that I get the chance to do this again. I kind of approach everything I do like that, but like knowing it was a final thing just made me really push through moments that were frustrating throughout, whether it was like computer crashes or like things falling through that were not supposed to fall through. I was just like, gotta do it. I don't know though. I don't know that it being the last thing had anything to do with that. I just wanted to make it good because I saw what I was getting. Like I saw the movie, I was like, oh God, it's how I always feel like working on the show. I'm always just like, I need to do something that can even come close to what they are doing, story wise, acting wise, art wise. Like I need to go all in.
Thank you for listening to In Defense of Ska. To support the show, sign up for our Patreon. Intro and outro music by Slow Gherkin from the EP Lives. Additional music by Dan P. and the Bricks. Please rate and review the podcast and tell a friend. Follow at In Defense of Ska on social media. The book In Defense of Ska by Aaron Carnes is available from Clash Books. Order it online. Chris Reeves of SPI is our editor. This is your co-host, Adam Davis of Omnigon, leaving you by saying ska now more than ever. It's Craig of the Creek, whoa! Craig of the Creek.
Do you not know the lyrics to the song that you watch with your kids every week?
Listen, Aaron, I'm usually washing dishes or folding laundry. Also, I just jumped in on it and I got scared. So, yeah.
Can you sing the outro, the sad outro?
I don't know the sad outro.
Oh, okay.
Netflix, whatever they stream it on switches to the next episode.
Oh.
And then there's like that with the guitar and it like the episode starts.
So we had a little bonus chat with Jeff and Ben, didn't we?
Sure did. And guess where you can catch that?
Where?
Over on our Patreon.
Ooh, and you know what was interesting? So during the episode, you had some pre-recorded questions from your child.
Yeah.
Guess who came on live?
My kid. He wandered down here into the studio.
Crazy.
Crazy things happen when you live with little guys.
Yeah, little guys. So, anyways, $5. Patreon, you know the drill. This is the week you're going to do it. I know you're going to do it this week. You've been waiting. Well, this is your week to do it.
And if you're already doing it, guess what? You don't even hear us saying any of this right now. Over on Patreon, you get to just hear the version where it goes straight to the second conversation.
So join us next week. We have a guest that is incredible, and I will not tell you their name.
Sorry.
Dip into your Raising Cane's whenever the craving strikes for something hot and fresh and oh so delicious. Dip in for perfectly salted, crispy, crinkle-cut fries. Dip in for garlicky buttered Texas toast. And of course, dip in for tender, hand-battered, cooked-to-order chicken fingers made just for you. At Raising Cane's, our secret cane sauce makes every dip a delight. Order on the app or online so you can dip out just as fast as you dipped in.
Raising Cane's chicken fingers. One love.